Thanks for being here, guys. My name is Ankit, and I am excited about this. So let's get right into it. Today's masterclass is about customer interviews, right? But before we get started, a couple of things I want to know. How many of you here identify as product managers? You can type +1 in the chat uh, to kind of respond.
Or maybe they can raise their hands as well.
Yeah, you can raise your hand. Okay, okay. How many of you here identify as aspiring product managers? Okay, okay. How many of you here work at a startup? Okay, again, bunch of people. And finally, how many of you here classify as aspiring entrepreneurs? Okay, I get a good feel for the room. Thank you so much. This session is for all of you. I'm going to convince you today that good customer interviews is foundation for your success, and how you can do it in a very tactical and practical manner is what we are going to see in today's session. A little bit about myself. So I'm an entrepreneur and a product manager. Over the last 10 years, I have been working with technology startups, and I work with founders to build products and grow businesses, right? Previous to this, I was founder of a company called FitGo. Now, we were a bunch of 10 people, and this was my trial and error learning about products. We were trying to help people meet their fitness goals. We had partnered with doctors and dietitians to curate meal plans, and we had an in-house kitchen, uh, chefs, and a team of delivery partners to bring food to your table. We had got good traction, and people who actually tried our product loved it, right? People actually got the results that they were looking for. And we got some media coverage as well, and it kind of felt cool at that time. But the TLDR of all of this is we failed at it. We really failed at it, right? And this is what happens with 90% of the startups. 9 out of 10 startups fail, right? Over the last 10 years, I have seen dozens of product ideas, new feature ideas, startups die, right? They simply go to the graveyard, no users, no traction, nothing. So this is what happens to a lot of great ideas. Now, what I have learned in this entire process is I have learned to build products that people want. And we all as product managers need to learn building products that people want. Because if we don't do that, our business will die. And we don't want that, right? Building something no one wants is the number one reason startups fail. You would have come across so many ideas or so many products that come and then just go down the trash, right? Because no one wants these products. No one has a need for no one has the problem that these products are trying to solve, right? And we don't really want that. So how do we build products that people want? We do this by talking to our users. And that is what this session is all about. In this session, I'll talk about 10 simple ideas uh, that can help you throughout your career as a product manager or a designer or a founder. Right? You don't need to have any prior knowledge to learn these ideas. You just have to be simply present with full attention in this session. Also, I know this is midweek and this is late in the evening, so I have tried to keep it as simple as possible without using any fancy jargons or any bells or whistles, right? Also, towards the end of the session, I'll share a bunch of resources that I find really helpful. So if you want, you can go deeper in the subject of today's masterclass with the help of these resources, right? So let's get started. Any questions anyone has before we actually get into the agenda? Yeah, I see Pratiksha raising the hand.
Hi, Pratiksha. You should be able to unmute yourself now.
Ankit, if you worked at a startup, I did work at a startup a couple of years ago as a product manager, but I am not sure how do we get the users. I didn't do any user interviews. The ideas came from my CEO and the co-founder, but I was generally writing the PRD and dealing with the engineering team. So I don't know how you actually talk to the consumers before your product is even out there.
Okay, got it. Pratiksha, this is a very legit question. I'll answer this question like during the course of this session. It is covered in this session.
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions at this point in time?
No.
Anyone else? Suresh has a question. Yes, Suresh.
Yes, I specifically wanted to understand how do we find insights from limited number of users in a B2B setup? Because while creating a B2B product, it is very difficult to find number of users because of obvious reasons. So with limited interviews, how do we get enough actionable insights
Got it.
or confidence level? Yeah, so that is my challenge I'm facing.
Got it, Suresh. We can chat about towards the end of the session. Just bring this question once again if I forget.
All right. Yeah. Thank you, Ankit.
Okay. There are. I see a couple of other questions. Can you specifically address B2B user interviews? Okay, this is what Suresh just asked. Can you also cover customer interactions after launch, perhaps when you are not getting enough traction? I'm afraid the second question that has been asked is a part of scope of this current masterclass, but we'll see if there's time left. I'll try to cover this as well. Okay, so let's get into it. Okay, let's get started. So 10 simple ideas, like I said, we'll go one by one. The first idea is ideas are just guesses. Ideas are just guesswork, right? So let's understand this with the help of an example. Let's say you are someone. One second. Yeah. Let's say you are a tea lover and you are someone who loves discovering new tea places in the town, right? And visiting there with the friends, having a good time, right? Now, to discover these new tea places, you go to Zomato or other applications like that and you search for tea. Now, this is what happened when I searched for tea on Zomato today. I got a bunch of results, but these results were not very useful for me, right? I don't remember going to Big Brewski anytime to have tea. I don't remember visiting House of Commons to have tea, right? This is because most outlets in the city serve tea, but this app is not designed to serve the users who are specifically looking for this sort of service, right? So as a tea lover, you find it a challenge to discover new tea places in the city. And while you have been facing this challenge over the years, you come up with an idea that why not build a new Zomato specifically for tea lovers, right? So you think that this could be a product where as a tea lover, I could go to this app and I can see what are the good tea places nearby. I can discover these tea places and then I can read reviews from fellow tea lovers, right? And I can see what are the good places. I can kind of build a sort of wish list that I want to visit over the course of next few months, right? You get excited by this idea. You think, yeah, this is really possible, and this is the next big thing I can work on. And then out of this excitement, you walk up to a few of your friends and say, hey, this is what I have been thinking. Do you think this is a good idea? Right? And your friends, all of who are also tea lovers, say, yes, we have all been facing this problem. Hey, Ankit, let's do this, right? And then you build it, you ship it, and after 6 months, you see on Play Store, your app has been downloaded by, let's say, 100 people, which includes 5 of your friends and 95 other people, your friends and you poke to download, right? So this is a classical failure story, and right, and you don't want to be in this situation, right? Now, if you look back on this, you will think this sounded like a good idea. I spoke to a few users also, but then what went wrong? The problem here is there were a bunch of hidden assumptions in your thought process, right? So there were actually a lot of assumptions in your thought process. You assume that people want another app on their phone. You assume that there are enough tea lovers in the town who care about discovering tea places online. You assume that there are enough tea places in the town to be listed on this app, right? You made a bunch of other assumptions, like people who like to have tea also like to write reviews about the tea places that they visit. When looking for a tea place, people might consider a number of other things, but are people willing to visit only places that serve tea as a primary dish, right? So these are kind of some assumptions that you have made in this process, and you summed up all these assumptions with a business viability assumption, assuming that you will be able to sell subscriptions of this app, or you will be able to make money by showing ads on this app, right? These assumptions can actually be very dangerous if you proceed with building an app like that. What we need to understand over here is, at a very high level, 4 major things have to fall in place for any idea to materialize in a successful product. This idea has to be a desirable idea. What I mean by that is, it has to add value in people's life. It has to contribute to something that they value, right? It has to solve some pain points. It has to either educate them, it has to entertain them, it has to help them solve some problem of their life, right? And it has to be built in a way that people can actually use it, right? If it is overly complex, they will not have any motivation to use it. If it is a tedious thing to do, again, they will not have any motivation to use it. So it has to be something that adds value in their life, and it has to be built and packaged in a way that people can actually use it. Next, we have to take in consideration that we should be able to build this product, right? So when we are doing this, we have to take in consideration the kind of capabilities we have on our team, and the kind of tools and technologies we have out in the market that we can use. For example, today it is possible for you to build an application that generates chat-based responses, right, using OpenAI. It is possible for you to even generate photos and short videos. But is it possible as of today to generate 2-hour long video using generative AI? I guess not, right? So you have to see the feasibility. And finally, with all these things, you have to see, if you build this app, will you be able to make profits, right? Are there enough people who care about this problem dearly enough to pay you for the problem, right? You might build the app, but if there are only so many tea lovers in the city, that even if all of them pay, you are not able to cover your costs. This is probably not a viable business idea, right? So these are the 4 things that have to align for any idea to succeed. Now, what do we do now, right? So every time we have an idea, the first point for us is to remember that idea is just a guesswork. Ideas are just a guesswork, and we have to translate it. We have to translate these ideas using a scientific approach. So first, we should list out all the assumptions that we are making when we are thinking of this idea. We should, in terms of assumptions, we can think of assumptions in terms of all these 4 parameters that I talked about, and try to gather secondary evidence. For example, in the example that I picked, right, there is an assumption that there are enough tea lovers in the city. There is another assumption that there are enough tea places in the city. There is another assumption that people can discover this app on App Store, right? All of these are assumptions. Once you have list of assumptions, next step for us is to try to actually gather some evidence. For example, how many tea places are there in city which can potentially be listed on this app? This is something that you can identify using secondary research. For example, you can see how many chai point outlets are there, how many chaios outlets are there, how many different chains are there, how many different chains are coming up, how is the funding environment like in this ecosystem, all of those things, right? So you can get some evidence. Regarding the other assumption that you have, which is, can users actually discover this app on App Store? This is also something that you can build some secondary evidence. How you can do that? Let's say you have someone on your team who is good SEO person. He has really worked on doing app store optimizations, right? And he has seen apps growing from 0 download to thousands of downloads, right? So that is again an evidence that, okay, this is something that is solvable. Once you have all the problems, all the assumptions for your problem, and some sort of secondary evidence, you should plot your ideas on this chart to see, okay, these are my most risky assumptions, or these are the assumptions which, if they fail, my product is bound to fail. Once we have identified this, we know that these are the things that we want to learn from our customers when we are talking to our customers, right? So this is the first basic thing whenever we have an idea. Moving forward. So now that we know that these are the assumptions that we are making, and these are the most risky assumptions, what is the next step? The next step for us is to talk to users, right? Or is to recruit the users. This was one of the questions that someone asked at the beginning of session. How do we recruit the users? How do we get to the users, right? So we have to remember that we need to talk to the right set of users, right? We cannot just talk to any users. We have to get creative in finding out where can we actually get these right users. Here's an illustration I have kept. You can take a minute to read. So basically the point is, talking to your mom may not be the best idea. Talking to your best friends may not be the best idea, right? Because the moment they know it is your idea, the chances of them saying that it is a bad idea are way lower or way lesser than chances of them saying, yeah, it is a very good idea, because they don't want to hurt your feelings, right? Now, how do you recruit the right users? There can be different ways for you to recruit the users. Depends on what sort of setup you are in. Let's talk about a new product first, and then we'll talk about B2B products and different sort of products. Okay. So if it is a new product altogether, let's say, again, going back to our example, something to do with food, right? You can actually go to places where people hang out. For example, if it is about tea lovers, you can go to places that are already having good number of tea lovers visiting them, right? The existing outlets. So this is what we call as moment of pain. Where do you see people experiencing this problem that you're trying to solve for, right? If you're trying to build a product for, let's say, designers, right? Visiting design colleges, visiting conferences and meetups where you find designers might be a good idea. If you are building a product, if I'm building a product for aspiring product managers, I would probably reach out to someone like a Harleen or someone else in IPL team to allow me access to talk to these people, right? Once we have a few leads, I will try to use these leads to reach out to more such people. So let's say I am in a B2B setup. We are building a product for accountants, right? And I have 3 accountants on my team, 3 accountants on the customer side, right? While I'm speaking to these accountants, I will try to ask them for referrals. Hey, do you have other friends who are working as accountants or finance people in different teams where I can actually speak to them and get some insights, right? Again, in B2B setup, your customer facing teams, which is your sales managers, your account managers, your relationship managers, right? They are a really good source for you to get leads, right? So if a salesperson is reaching out to, let's say, 5 people in a day, right? The sales cycle can be long. It can take months for the team to close a deal. But you can tactically actually reach out to people who are going ahead with your competitors and see what went wrong with your product, right? So leverage your customer facing teams to speak with your potential users as often as possible. Then there are a bunch of other options also. For example, you can use social media forums. There are so many Facebook groups. There are so many forums on LinkedIn, Twitter, right? You can use these sites. There are specialty sites also. For example, if your product is for, let's say, engineers, right? And you want to talk to engineers, you can actually reach out to freelance engineers who are working on sites like Fiverr or Upwork, right? On these sites, you can actually find people from multiple different professions. Then there are specialty products designed for user research. what they allow you is you can go on these products and you can say, I actually want to talk to plumbers, or I actually want to talk to electricians, right? Or I actually want to talk to social media managers, right? These products actually build communities of different type of people, and they incentivize them to participate in your research, right? So some of these products I have listed at the end of this session. You can, at the end of the resources section in this session, so you can visit them, right? So identify who is your target user and reach out to these users, right? When you reach out to these users, your objective is not to sell anything to them, right? You have to communicate and make it very clear to them that you are trying to learn something and they will be your partner in this discovery activity, right? Make it very clear that you don't need all their time. All you need is 10, 15, 20 minutes of their time for some learning about their lives, right? And even if you are not getting adequate number of users, you can try to incentivize the users, right? You can say that, hey, if you talk to us for 30 minutes, we'll give you XYZ dollars in Amazon vouchers or something like that, right? So these are different techniques. If you are an existing company with paying users, right? Your life is little easy in the sense that you can always reach out to these people to talk to you, right? Getting users when you are just starting out can be little more tricky, but if you go about it in a little creative manner, this is not really a big deal to find some users to talk to. Now, you have listed the assumptions, you know what you want to find out. You have also built a pipeline of the potential users you want to talk to, right? The next step is to actually go and talk to these users. So what we need to remember over here is, this is the third idea. No one will ever tell you that your baby is ugly. Okay. So you don't have to make it about yourself when you talk to the users. Again, a little illustration. You can read it, but this is a classical example of how not to do it. Okay, so when you're talking to the users, like I said, you have to make sure that you communicate. You don't make this meeting about yourself. It's not about you, right? You are interested in learning about people's life rather than talking about your idea. Because the moment a user gets to know that it is your idea, they know that your sentiments are linked to this idea, right? So they will not give very honest feedback, or they'll try to sugarcoat their feedback. And you don't really want that, right? So you can do it multiple ways. You can keep it as casual as possible, that you are just trying to learn about something, or you can pretend to be a researcher, you can pretend to be a student, but don't try to make it about yourself. Second thing is, you do not want to encourage group thinking. So talk to one person at a time. Try to get this one person's insight or this one person's ideas, learn from it, and then move on to the other person. Doing focus groups or doing group research is not really a very good practice when it comes to interviewing users. And like I said, third thing is, ask them about specific stories from their past life, from what they have been doing. Let me give you an example. So if we talk about this again, Zomato for tea lovers, right? Rather than directly asking, hey, I am thinking of this idea of Zomato for tea lovers, is this a good idea? You can actually go about and ask them a question like, hey, how was the last time you discovered a good tea place? And then they will say, hey, what, my friends were home, we were planning to go somewhere out, but then we thought it's tea time, let's go for a tea. Then we went to Zomato, but then there were no good options, so we talked to this friend. So you get the idea, right? Rather than asking for their opinions, ask them about a story of their life. Tell me, last time you did this, you did X, right? What was the hardest part about doing X, right? Why was this really hard, right? What, if anything, you would have done to solve this problem? And if there is any solution, like what do you not love about the solution? What do you like about the solution? So try to get them to tell you a story and infer from that story. Read between the lines from the story the user tells. I see Pratiksha has her hand raised. Harleen, can you unmute her?
Hello, I had a question.
Yeah.
This tea idea is not something I am able to wrap my head around. I'll just ask you a little different question. Like, I'm from Goa, okay? And you must know it's a very famous tourism place. So I don't know if you've been there or any of your friends have been, but if I ask you that if you want to launch Uber in Goa, uh, which is the data you try to buy or fetch first? It's like the first thing that comes to your mind.
Okay, good question. So if we have to, and this is actually a good case study because companies like Ola and Uber have really failed to launch a product like cab hailing app in Goa. So if we have to do this, there are two parts to this. One, we have to understand from users' point of view. In this case, there are two types of users. First user is my customers or my users who are looking to get a cab ride, right? So we'll try to speak to those users. The second set of users, which is supply side of my marketplace, right? Those are actually drivers, right? Or owners, partners, right? Driver partners or transport operators, right? So when I talk to transport operators and the users, I'll get to know like, is it something that they really want? So if I talk to customers, I will ask, how was like the last time you got a cab in Goa? They'll say, I just booked by waving my hand and so on and so forth. I'll get some stories, right? Then I talk to driver partners and understand, do they have any problem, right? And that is how we get a sense of both sides of the stories.
So practically, you would have to visit the place and talk to the drivers over there. I mean, I don't know who are the people who are doing this, because I have worked in enterprise software and I don't know what the sales marketing team was doing. Because at that time I was not a product manager. I was in the technical team.
Okay.
So the sales team is doing cold calling to enterprises like Intel and all, which is totally different than a consumer app like Uber. So for a consumer app like Uber, they would actually have to have teams who go and talk to probably these car drivers at an airport or something.
Correct. That has
or
to
a
happen.
taxi stand. That has to happen, right? Okay.
That has to happen. So see, there can be cases where as a company you decide to forego this step. You decide to like skip this step. But it can have serious implications, because if you skip this step, you are actually going ahead and building things without really knowing if all the set of users that you plan to use this product are actually willing to use this product, right? So you might build a product and then you will face problems later on. This happens in B2B setups also, wherein if you build a product because there is a competitor product out there in the market and that product is selling well, you will build the product, but you will not really have the insights that you need to scale this product further, right? So such companies don't really do well. You need to do this for you to continue to innovate on top of what you have built, right?
Okay. So the thing is, I would say personally that if Zomato has worked in Goa,
okay,
and that means there are enough number of tech savvy people in a place like Goa also, who are the residents, not outsiders, or Zomato is mainly used by the people who live there, who want food delivered. So if there are tech savvy people there, and there is a transport problem in Goa, because you don't have right buses from everywhere to everywhere. You even get auto rickshaws only at station, or you get cabs only at airport. So what happens is, there are if you focus only the cab part, let's say, because Uber makes more money in a cab rather than an auto. So the thing is, there are a lot of 5-star hotels and 4-star hotels which are targeted by the the tourists, and all these places, they need reachability. They need to send people on a tour or something like that. So
Yeah.
for that, 5 stars have their own set of cars. But when these cars come out, they are not even allowed to park near the 5 star because the local taxi walas, they don't get people.
Correct.
So there is a pool of drivers who actually wants to cater to these guys, but there is no proper way to get to these guys. So I think a go-to-market strategy would be to have kind of a ecosystem created by someone like Uber. Let's just use the term Uber for that, and create a group pool of these drivers and allocate them depending on requirement to certain tours which a 4 star is offering. Let's say 5 star people have their own cabs, they won't take anything less than that. Or we could have the prime sedan or the luxury section for them. And we could have for other 4 stars and 3 star hotels that, okay, we'll take you on these particular tours, which are like custom made, within this area, within this miles radius. And that would be a good thing to do. Or would it be better to go for, proper cab and auto setup like we have in Bangalore or Pune or Bombay?
Got it. See, actually, based on this discussion, we cannot really tell what is a good option, because unless we, as the product managers, speak to these different parties, the people who are running these hotel-specific cars that you're talking about, the people who are operating on airports and other places, right? We don't really know what are their pain points. So I know for a matter that there is a union problem in Goa. So we need to understand what are the incentives and motivations of different sections of potential users. And based on that, we have to see if there is a way for us to align those motivations.
I think there are some companies which are catering to these transport kind of things. They are like, there are some representatives who sit from Make My Trip and Clear Trip in these 5 star hotels, which manage the tour as such for foreigners and all. I've seen this happen. They do it even for Indians. So I think we need to get the data first, right? Like from a proper database, like a Make My Trip related database or a Clear Trip related database. Wouldn't that be something where we know how many hotels are there, how many people are there, what is the footfall in different seasons, what is getting the actual data? Like today's, it's like totally AI zamana, right? AI driven decision making. So wouldn't that be a part of the primary research?
Sure. Pratiksha, actually, in interest of time, let's proceed with the session. And this specific case, we can discuss after the session.
Okay, yeah, sure, no problem.
Okay, so yeah, so we were talking about interviews. You have identified the assumptions that you have. You have identified the users that you want to talk to. The next step, like I said, is for you to start talking to your users, and you don't really want to make it about yourself. You want to listen to user stories rather than talking about your idea, and you want to learn from those stories. Now, the next step is you need to dig this story really down. The objective for you is to understand the context in which the user is operating. So let's say we are thinking of building an app, and this has three types of users, right? For each type of users, however we envision them using the product, we need to know the entire context. What I mean by that is, let's say, again, going back to our old example, where a person is looking to find out a new tea place, right? Every story has a starting point. Every story has an ending point. Every story has different characters, right? Every story has different triggers. Every story has good emotions, bad emotions, right? So you want to uncover all of it, so you know this is really the pain point that a person has. These are additional pain point that the person has, right? And this pain point is so severe for the person. This pain point is not really severe, right? So when a person is narrating the story, you set the expectation that in this discussion, in this interview, it is them who will be doing the talking, right? And you will like to go in as much depth as possible. So set this expectation upfront, right? And remember that you want to learn all the pain points possible. So when they are narrating the story that we were doing this, we were doing X, right? You ask them specific things to complete the story, to get all the pieces for you to get the complete story, which is like, where did it happen? Who all were there? How did it start? What was the trigger, right? How did you feel about it? What were the frustrations, right? Did you think of switching to a different product at that point in time? Were there different product options available, right? Why not? These are sort of questions you ask to get the entire story. Also remember that when you're asking some of these questions, a person might say that generally this is what I do in such a situation. For example, if you are building a healthcare app and you ask people how many times you work out in a week, the person might say, I work out 5 times a week. But remember, this is their idealized version of themselves. This might not be true. If you actually get into the details and ask them, like, okay, when was the last time you worked out? They'll say, okay, I worked out last time on Saturday. But then it has been 5 days because it was World Cup. Okay. Before Saturday, I worked out last Saturday. Why? Because it was Diwali and festive season. Okay. Before that, I worked out. You get the point, right? So you see, what they are really doing is not what they think. So don't ask for their opinions. Opinions are not really very useful for us. We really want to know what are users doing and infer from the real right? So ask for details. Remember, what they say is not what they do. Get into the story and get the details from this story, right? Also try to get the solution hacks. Let's say you are facing a problem. Let's say a potential user is facing a problem. If this problem is acute enough for them, they would already have some sort of solution in mind. They would be looking to get solutions, right? So see if there is a hack in place that they are currently using to solve this problem, right? Are they, like, generally people in B2B setups for products that do not exist, people use a bunch of Excel sheets to maintain trackers. People use different sort of reminders to make the payments. So there can be different hacks that people use. See if the person that you're talking to is already employing some sort of solution hack to solve the problem that you are talking about, right? When you do this, you will realize that not all prospects are relevant prospects for you, or not everyone you thought could be a customer for you is a customer for you, right? After talking to a bunch of people, you will realize that you can actually classify these people in a sort of pyramid. There'll be people who don't really have this problem. Then there'll be people who have this problem but are not really aware of the problem. And this hierarchy kind of graduates, right? So there'll be people who have the problem and who are aware of the problem. Again, taking the same example, if someone does not like an app like Zomato, they might actively be looking for other options, right? If there are 10 people in a group and it is always one person who finds out the place to visit, other 9 people may not really be aware of this problem, that these are the challenges with an app like Zomato, right? So those other 9 people for now are not really the right people for us to speak to, because they have not really felt the problem. Then there are people who are aware of this problem, that, yeah, I know this is a problem, these filters don't work, this search is not right, but that's it. They are not really looking for solutions. But then if you look for other users who are facing this problem every day, who are frequent users of app like Zomato, Uber, they will know that, okay, this is a problem, and they would probably already be working or looking for solutions. They will be part of Facebook groups. They'll be part of other sort of Telegram groups where people are discussing this problem at their level, right? So this is the hierarchy. There are people who don't know the problem. There are people who don't have the problem. Then there are people who have the problem and are actively looking for solutions. There are people who have assembled parts of the problem, right? Your objective is to find out people who are facing this problem very acutely, because they will be the first ones to adopt your solution. They will be the first ones to agree to spend a lot of time with you to co-create the product that you are trying to create, right? And when you're doing these discussions, try to note down the lingo they are using. Try to note down the kind of wordings and language they are using, because at a later point in time, you can actually flip this language in your marketing copy. Let's say you do 10 interviews and you see that people facing this X problem, right? the way they narrate that it is really painful to get a good restaurant which has X thing, right? You can use that as a potential benefit when you're marketing your product, right? Lastly, try to understand the existing spends and budget they have for this problem in their life. So whatever service it is, be if you're talking about a B2B product, which is to do with, let's say, spend management, or a B2B product, which is to do with some CRM, try to understand, do they have a budget for this? Are they already solving this problem using a hacky solution? And that hacky solution is also costing them something, right? If the hacking solution is costing them something, at least that is the budget they have to solve this problem. If they are not deploying any solution right now, any hacky solution right now, try to understand, like, what is it costing them to not solve this problem? Because if you solve this problem for them, then they would be ready to spend this much to get the solution and save the revenue loss that they are seeing, right? So try to get all the users that you speak to in this pyramid and identify who could be your early adopters, because these are the set of people that you will be working with next. So not all the people that you speak to are relevant for you. The next thing is, it might be possible that after you do this discovery activity, you realize that the problem itself is not relevant, because not all problems that you think are problems are relevant to be solved. If it so happens that after your discovery, you realize that in these 3 top sections of this pyramid, there are not many users, that basically means this is not really a big problem, or there is no significant addressable market for you to address over here, right? So it makes sense for you to either discard the idea or pivot to something else, because this is a clear sign that this solution or this problem does not warrant your attention based on the interactions that you have done so far. Next thing is, so once you have done a bunch of interviews, you have an idea that, okay, this is the problem. These are the set of users who are facing these problems. Of these 10 problems, this is the most important problem for them, right? You try to go a little deeper and see what is the kind of value that these people are seeking in your solution. How do you do that? You ask them for currency. Now, there can be different types of currency. To test value, one way to test currency is money. So if a person has a problem and you propose a solution, is the person actually ready to put the money, right? Are they ready to do a pre-order? If that is the case, this is a really good problem that you have found out. This is a really good customer segment that you have found out. They are feeling the pain of this problem every single day. And so they are eager to even give you pre-orders when you are telling them about a potential solution, right? So people can show their willingness to work with you, to buy your product by directly promising on money, by giving you pre-orders, by giving you a letter of intent to buy, which may not be binding on them, but then it shows an intent, right? The second currency that people can give you to ascertain that, yes, this is something of interest to them, is time. After you have done interviews and you request them, hey, can we talk again once we have made progress? And they are willing to spend more time with you, right? It means that they are seeing value in what you are building, right? So when you ask them for more time, more sessions with them, and they are obliging, that means they are seeing value in what you are talking about. The next thing that people can give you in terms of currency is reputation. So you do an interview with someone, they see value, and then you ask them, hey, can you connect me with 2 of your friends? Can you connect me with some of your co-workers? Can I speak to your boss who might have more insights on this, right? You will get to know that if people really feel that this is something that does not make sense, they do not want to risk their credibility, right? They do not want to risk their reputation by introducing you to their closed groups, right? They will not really help you out. But if this is something that they see value in, they will be willing to help you out. They'll be willing to share your idea on their social media to help you connect with more people you can speak to, right? They'll be able to connect, they'll be willing to connect you to other people in their network. So they're ready to help you with their reputation. Lastly, people can also help you with access. So let's say you are in a B2B setup. This typically happens in B2B setups where you are working on a product which solves a certain problem for a section, right? Let's say you are building an expense management product, and the company that you are talking to uses a legacy expense management product which is really outdated and which is really a pain for them to use, right? If you talk to them, you have hit the right problems. The person in the finance team or accounts team or whoever you are speaking to, right, really believes that you are solving a right problem for them. And if that problem is solved, it will ease their life. They'll be ready to share access of the existing products that they use for solving this problem with you, so that you can learn from those products and you can iterate on top of them. You can improve those experiences, right? You can learn from their experience. So these are different ways in which people can give you their currency. Money is not the only currency. The other forms of currency, which is time, repetition, access, also helps you understand how much people are inclined towards the idea that you're talking about. Next thing is, now this is the next thing. After you have like spoken to a bunch of people, how do you know if you have spoken to enough people to move forward? This is something that you need to decide before you actually start talking to people. So if you say that, hey, this is the problem, I feel 90% of the people are facing this problem, or if you say that, okay, if I speak to 10 people, at least 7 people will have this problem, right? That should be your success criteria. So design your go, no go or pass fail test well in advance. Know that I want to speak to at least 15 people. I want to speak to at least 50 people, right? And if I get 10 favorable responses, if I get 40 favorable responses out of, let's say 50, I will consider it a positive signal, right? So, and think of this in terms of number of people rather than thinking in terms of percentages. Because if you start thinking of percentages, if you speak to 3 people and all 3 of them say yes, right, that might be 100%, but eventually you have spoken to only 3 people, which is not really a big number of people to speak to come to any conclusion, right? So look for patterns, don't really go for statistics, and define your success criteria well in advance, right? This will help you not get into a decision limbo, that okay, you have 10 positive responses already, but you don't know if you should proceed or if you should not proceed. So having the success criteria defined in advance will help you with this.
Interrupt you?
Yeah.
I just wanted to know, like, how do you decide on how many users you are going to interview? So when you start, how can you predict that or estimate?
Got it. Actually, Suresh, this is not really, there's not really science to this. So let's say you start with a bare minimum number that I want to talk to 10 people. Okay. You talk to these 10 people, and while you are talking to these 10 people, you have at the back of your mind that if 7 or more people are giving me this signal, I am fine with it. Otherwise, if I'm not getting a clear signal, I'll talk to 10 more users, right? So you decide that my initial success is this. I will start with, let's say, talking to 15 people. If I'm able to get a pattern in this 15 people, well and good. If after talking to these 15 people, I realize that I'm not getting the pattern, but I am hopeful that, okay, if I talk to maybe another 15 people, I'll get a pattern. You pick the pattern, right? So there's no really one number that you can pick when you are starting this. You have to start somewhere based on your previous experiences, based on the type of product that you are building. So if it is a B2C product, you might have to talk to a lot more users. If it is an enterprise product, or if it is a B2B product and you are solving for small and medium businesses, again, you need to talk to a lot more people. But then the moment you the moment you start going in mid-market and enterprise categories, right, you know that maybe speaking to 3 people in one category, one vertical might be a good idea, because generally all these companies are operating in the same manner. So the more the variabilities in your customer segment, the more people you want to talk to.
Okay, yeah, got it. Thank you.
I see one more person has their hand raised.
Yeah, hi, Ankit.
Hi.
So just had a question again. This is in continuation with the B2B products, right? So in our case, what we do is, for example, like, I work in a segment where we have these, it's an enterprise ERP product, and we actually build these free apps which are, which are actually on top of these are platform products on top of the core products. So that's the reason why we built it, because there are a lot of gaps which is existing in the current core products. Like, for example, in the manufacturing side, most of the customers are all manufacturing related customers. There are a lot of gaps, because of which we identified those gaps, and that's the reason why we have tried to plug those gaps and build our own platform products.
Okay.
So interviewing these customers, right? So currently the way we are tracking our metrics is basically we are seeing the number of customers who have installed our products, basically. So and then we are seeing how many of them have actually been using it for, like, every month, on a month-to-month basis. We are tracking it in that way.
Okay, right.
Now, the point when it comes to now, if I have to improve the adoption of my product, okay, so I have from let's say if I extract a list of customers based on the market segment they are in, the geographical base and all, and like what industry they are, it's a huge list. So so my question is, how do I actually, sample them? It's going to be, for what I understand, is it's going to be a random sampling, because it's even difficult to get the correct point of contacts for these customers. Like in our ERP system, if I have to see where the customer is defined and the account representative for them, right? In many of those cases, they're not clearly defined. So which makes it even more difficult for me to identify the right person whom I should be talking to. So so my question is, how do I identify, like, it's a huge list of customers across segments. How do I zero on that? Okay, these are these customers that I can go about at least interviewing them.
Got it. See, if I understand the problem correctly, you have a huge list of customers. So, and it is an enterprise use case. So first, in this case, what I'll do is I'll try to find out who is the persona who would be most relevant for these discussions, right? Who is the person who I can learn the most when I'm talking to? Is it the CXO level people in these companies, or is it middle management? If it is middle management, which department, which function, right? So I'll try to see, if I get an interview, like, who is the person who will have the most amount of context that I can get started with. So this is with regards to narrowing down on person in one particular company. Now, second is, how do I navigate to a specific company in first place, right? Rather than like reaching out to this person. So again, there can be different type of companies. We need to know that, okay, for this type of company, this is the problem that our product solves. For this type of company, this is the problem our company solves, right? So for which company, for which segment of companies, what sort of problems we are solving, and then we pick some people from some random sample from all these different segments of companies that we have created, right? Once we have this, we speak to these people, and then we validate if this approach is right. Let's say I speak to 5 people from 5 different segments of companies, and all of these 5 people are, let's say, product people, right? But then after speaking to them, I realized that these people by themselves are saying that they are not the right person to answer my questions. I should probably talk to someone in procurement department, right? So this is a learning process. As we start speaking to customers, we get next steps that, okay, you speak to this person, you need to speak to this type of companies. When you are starting out, you may not really be able to pinpoint that this is the person I want to speak to.
Okay, got it. Sure. Thanks, Ankit.
Okay. Moving on. Yeah, so we were talking about defining our success before we actually get into it. Now, we also need to know that there is only so much evidence we can gather by talking to people. Before you talk to people, you did secondary research. You searched whatever information you could get on internet. You searched for reviews of the competitor products. You searched for different forums that are out there. Whatever secondary research you could do to gather the evidence, you have done. Now, after you got into talking to customers, you have gathered more evidence. But then after a point in time, there is, you will realize that the benefit of talking to more users diminish. So there are diminishing returns over here also. So you need to be cognizant of the fact that you need not be in a decision paralysis, or you need not be in a phase where you are just talking to customers and not making progress. If this is the level of information which is zero, when you started thinking of this idea, that was fantasy zone, right? After you do a few conversations, your evidence level is increasing, your risk level is decreasing. And once you have some insights and you see that it makes sense for you to invest more time in it, you should go ahead and start building. When I say start building, it does not really mean you start building live product, but you start building paper prototypes, you start building some sort of solution mockups, right? Which you can then use in your conversations with your early adopters, the people who are having these problems, or who are facing the problems most acutely, like we talked about earlier, and then start to that you're thinking of, right? So the point is, you don't invest more resources until you gather more evidence. As and when you start getting more evidence in positive direction, you can put in more resources, and you can continue to interview people. When you have done this, when you have done the customer interviews and you have some evidence and you want to now start building the product, it is the time to get roasted. What I mean by that is, you have a bunch of people who you think will be early adopters. They are ready to work with you. Now you present to them what is the potential solution you are thinking of. When I say potential solution, I don't mean that you go and talk to them about a long list of features that you want to give them, right? You tell them that, hey, these are the top 3 things that my product will do, right? And broadly, if you think about it, this is the life before this product and this is the life after this product. So you have to help them visualize the difference this product or this feature is making in the world, right? Try to draw a visual representation of customer workflow before and customer workflow after this product. If the workflow before the product is launched is a patchy work where you have to use 3 different solutions, where you have to struggle on multiple interfaces, and after the product a bunch of things are automated, right? Doing that visual representation will help you get the feedback if you are solving the problem right? So with these sort of either landing pages or prototypes or even explainer videos, you can start getting early feedback, right? And ask for honest feedback on the core value of the product. You can make it very clear to the people you are speaking to that they don't have to sugarcoat their feedback for you, because they have been engaging with you for this long now. Even if at this point in time they feel that this is something that does not make sense, this is not what they envisioned in first place when you talk to them, they have to share that feedback openly with you. Finally, the last piece of idea that I have is show your work. What I mean by that is, it does not make sense for you as a product manager to continue to do all of this work without your entire team learning from it, right? So when you are working on this thing, let's say you do one customer interview, right? Or one user interview, right? Prepare the learnings that you have from this interview. Document the learnings in one place, right? And try to create a one pager that you can circulate with the entire team, so that even if I have not attended the interview, even if I'm a part of, let's say, operations team or a finance team or a marketing team, right? There's something that I can learn from the interview that the product and design team has done, right? So for every interview, try to put up a one-pager interview snapshot that you can share with the team. Also, you should maintain a summary of learnings that you have had, right? There can be different ways to do it, but then typically you should try to capture all the necessary information that you get just after the interview, which might include things like first name, photo, profile link, and other personality identifiers of the user, right? Which helps you recall, okay, this was the user we had spoken to. Then you should also capture some interview related meta tags. Okay, this was a person that I spoke from agriculture industry. This was the person that I spoke from automobile industry. This was a person that I spoke that represented an enterprise user. This was a person that represented a SMB user, right? So identify these tags for you and start making a database of all the interviews that you do, right? Then for every interview, make a list of opportunities that you see. For example, when you're speaking to a person and you see these are the 3 needs that this person has, these are the 3 pain points that this person has, list it down. When you are in the interview, ask the person to rank the pain points for you, ask the person to rank the needs for you, right? So that you know, okay, I have done 50 interviews, and across all 50 interviews, I'm seeing a consistent pattern that this is the number 1 pain point everyone is telling me. This is the number 1 need that everyone is telling me, right? And then once you have this, you will be able to clearly see writing on the wall that, okay, this is the main problem that I need to solve, as against what I was thinking when I started working on this idea, right? So make 1-pager interview snapshots, make summary of the learnings, share these things with your team, and at any point in time, provide visibility to the entire team who is bothered about what you're working on, right? On the overall process you are following. Don't work in silos. Don't really keep working on this without people having visibility on what you are doing. Because when the team does not have visibility on what you are doing, they start getting impatient. So provide visibility on the overall process, that this is what I'm thinking. I'll first talk to these many users. Then based on insights, I'll do prototyping. Based on prototyping, we'll build an MVP. Or if the prototype does not work out, we will go back and talk to users again to pivot a little bit, right? So provide visibility on the overall process and the next steps. This is one example of 1-pager interview snapshot that I talked about. So if you can, like, let's say you are doing this interview on Zoom, and the person allows you to record the call, well and good. If the person does not allow you to record the call, you can request them to take a photo of yours, right? While you are doing the Zoom call, because that image, that screenshot instantly puts you back in the memory of that call. Okay, this was the person. These were the 3 people from our team who were part of this call, right? And these are some of the quotes that the person told, that, hey, it is really pain to work with SAP, right? I'm just using one example, but that helps you quickly refresh the core essence of any interview. Quick recap. So number 1, your ideas are just guesswork. You have to actually work like a detective to find out like what are the assumptions that you are hidden assumptions that you are making, and which are the assumptions that you really want to debunk. What are the learnings that you want from your customers. Second thing is, you need to get out of a building. You need to find out where to get the users. You need to start reaching out to these users, right? And start getting interviews with them. Next, once you have that, you interview these users. Remember, no one will tell you that your baby is ugly, so don't make it about yourself. Don't talk about your idea. Don't pitch your idea. The objective is to understand from how they do something. What are the problems they face when they are doing something? What are the problems when they face when they are using some product, right? And learn from those experiences. When a person is telling the story, dig this story, try to get all aspects of the story, right? After you have done this, try to put all the people that you've spoken to in a pyramid to see who are the most relevant people that you want to talk to, right? Who are the people who are having the problems that you're trying to solve as most acute problems, who are aware of these problems, who are looking for solutions to these problems, and who have the budget to solve these problems, right? Once you have this, you might even realize that the problem that you are working on is not really a relevant problem. There are not many people who care about this problem, which is a clear indication that you can actually discard this problem and work on something better. if your problem actually happens to be a good problem and you have found out some potential early adopters, try to gauge the value that they see in the solution, right? And you can do that by asking for currency in different formats, like we talked about, which is money, attention, money, time, connections, and access, right? And define your success so that you are not in a decision paralysis after you have moved forward. Define clear go, no go, that I'll talk to these many people. If this is the response I get, this is my next step. If this is the response I get, this is the next step, right? Once you get a clear signal, start working on prototypes, start working on the product, make progress, and work with these early adopters, work with these evangelists to get real feedback, to see if your solution that you're working on is actually solving the problem that you intended to solve in first place. And finally, while you are doing all of this, do not forget to show your work, to keep the entire team apprised with the kind of work that you are doing. So these are the 10 ideas that I wanted to share today with you guys. Summing it up, before we move forward, any questions till here? Okay. I'm assuming that to be a no. Let's move forward. Yes. So this is a slightly top view of the entire process. From the time you get a new product idea or a feature idea to the time this product actually delights the customers, right? So it all starts with ideas and hypotheses, like we talked about, right? This is the zone of dreams. This is an idea or hypothesis, right? The first two steps you do is gather primary evidence and secondary evidence or supplementary evidence. Supplementary evidence is available from online resources like, are you getting any inbound queries? Can you find out some trend in search patterns? Are there any discussion forums online where you can get some insights, right? If not, you then go to if not, then you go and talk to the real potential users. You interview them, right? This gives you some sort of evidence, and it de-risks your idea to an extent. So if the risk of building something was, let's say, at 100 over here when you just started out, after you have done primary research and secondary research, after you've spoken to customers, you would have significantly de-risked your idea, right? You would have gotten enough evidence to tell you that, okay, this makes sense for me to go ahead, or this does not make sense for me to go ahead, right? And after that point in time, you start working on next steps, which is building the product. After you start building the product, there comes a phase which is solution validation, where you do a bunch of experiments to figure out if what you are building is the right thing to build, right? There are a bunch of experiments that you can design to test n number of things in the solution that you are building. But that is a matter of different masterclass altogether, right? It can be a different webinar where all of different experimentation techniques can be covered. But this is the bigger picture. We have, from idea till interviews, we have covered like only 20 to 30% of the path. Yeah. So I wanted to do some exercises with all of you, share some examples. What I'll do is I'll show some questions on the screen, and would be really great if people from audience volunteer to say if this is a good question or a bad question to ask in a customer interview. If you do not want to come and speak, please type your responses in chat. Before that, I see Lekha raising hand. Harleen, can you please unmute Lekha?
Hello.
Hi, Lekha.
Hi. So no, this is not volunteering. Actually, I just had this question which already a few guys have already asked. I'm still not clear. how much is there a kind of a percentage or some I don't know percentage of universe or whatever to say sorry, just let me rephrase it. How much of research is enough to understand that we can go ahead with the project with our product? Actually, I had also started something, and then I had like a few years. I've actually questioned so many people and everything. Maybe that was not enough, but actually, when I started off, the initial people who had actually encouraged, they did buy stuff from me and all that. But then the continuation was not happening, so I had to really kind of shut down, or it's not continued. Right now, it's actually not going on. So I just want to know whether is there a formula or something that we can kind of say enough, this much research you have to do, and then you can go ahead.
So
it's a silly question also. Yeah.
No, it's not a silly question. Like we all have this question, like when we start working on this. But the answer to this question really depends on what sort of market you are solving for. Okay, so let's take an example. Let's say I am building a product which is for let's say processing payrolls. Okay, and when I am thinking of this product for processing payrolls, the target market that I have in my mind is startups in India, right? Okay. So I'm targeting startups in India. Now I can define even more precisely that okay, I'm looking to work with companies that have 0 to 100 people to process payrolls for their employees. Why 0 to 100? Because we are starting out a new company. The moment you like start serving 500 people, 1,000 people company, the requirement get more and more complex. So you want to keep it simple, right? Now, if you're solving for 0 to 100 size companies, right? Then you can actually go and see what is the target market like. So how many such startups will be there in India? So this information might be available. Let's say there are 5 lakh such startups, right? Of these 5 lakh startups, you might even be able to understand that, okay, of every startup that there is, of every 10 startups that we have, how many startups are doing good? Which are the other payroll companies that are out there, right? So if your TAM itself is 5 lakh companies, right? You might start with the target of, okay, let's say I want to work with 100 companies in my first year. So let me start with talking to 20 people at first. But if you happen to be thinking of working on a B2C product, where you are planning to build something like an Ola or something like a Swiggy or any other B2C product, right? Your TAM is very big, right? And there are so many different use cases. So you have to now identify, okay, these are the 10 use cases. I want to address these 3 use cases in my first year. So for these 3 use cases, for each of these 3 use cases, I potentially want to speak to 40 users each. In B2B, when I said like only 5 lakh potential companies and use case is fairly similar, which is payroll, right? Talking to only 20-30 companies might be enough for you to get initial sort of pattern or a signal. So it depends on like what sort of product you are trying to build, how many different use cases are out there for that product, what is the target market like, what is the average ticket size of the solution like. There are a bunch of things. So start with something. Don't obsess over a number. Start with something. See what sort of pattern you are getting. If you spoke to 10 people and all 10 of them are like thumbs up, this is a very good idea. Okay, good. But looks like there is something wrong, because that is something that hardly happens with any product. Let me talk to a few more people. That's how you get the sense when you get into it.
Yeah. Okay. These are more of like, when we are targeting enterprises, it's more easy to get the universe and get the information, say LinkedIn or and Google and all those kind. So I was more focusing. I was talking about the B2C where target consumers. We just really don't know how. I don't know how to go out there in the market and find. You have to keep looking in the markets or online and all that. Okay, I think probably that I have to keep looking. That's the answer for it.
So one line answer to this
Thank you.
This is actually a judgment call.
Sorry?
I'm
Cold
saying
call.
the short answer to this is a judgment call that you have to take based on the experience that you have with the initial set of users that you speak to.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Okay. Moving on, we'll spend some time on these examples. So please type in the chat, and if you want to volunteer and come and discuss, we can do that. The first question that we have is, and so you go in an interview and you ask, do you think it is a good idea? Like, is this a good question, bad question, sort of okay question? What do you think?
Bad idea.
Okay. Very bad question, bad question. Okay. That's right. This is really a bad idea because one, it really does not tell us anything about the users we want to serve. We are not learning anything in this process. In fact, we are biasing the user. The moment we say, do you think this is a good idea? The natural thing the person thinks is probably he's thinking of working on this idea. And they do not want to really hurt your sentiments, right? So one, we are not learning anything in the process. Second, the feedback that we are getting is actually a wrong feedback. It adds bias, like Mahesh said. Next question. Would you buy a product which did X? Okay. Amit says this is a bad idea. Jatin says this is a bad idea. Can anyone come and like tell why is this a bad idea?
Yeah, probably because I mean, if we ask, are you going to buy a product, and if they are not committing to that, they might say yes or no. They might very well say yes as well. But then, as you said, we may not be learning anything from that.
Correct. So if you have to flip this problem, like if you have to flip this question, like what would you rather ask?
So I would ask, like, is this a problem a priority to you? Something like that. So perhaps whatever problem the product is solving, so is the problem a priority to you? Yeah, or do you, how are you solving this problem? Yeah.
So the second question that you said, how are you solving this problem, is even better than is this problem a priority for you? Because like I said, what people say is not what they do. At times, people don't even know what they want, right? So if we have to understand, like, would someone buy this product or not? I would rather try to figure out what is this X product doing? How is this product helping a person? And then go to people and ask, hey, how do you do this in your life? Right? I see two people have their hands raised. Abhilash and Indu, what was the name? Indumati. Arlene, could you please unmute them?
Yeah, I think Abhilash should be able to unmute himself now.
Okay. Yeah. Go ahead, Abhilash. Abhilash, we can't hear you if you're talking. You are not on mute now.
Okay, I think maybe Abhilash is facing some technical issues. We have Jitin, who wants to ask a question.
Hi, can you hear me?
Hi, Jitin. Yes, I can hear you.
Yeah, so I think I left a note here on the webinar chat as well. If this question was asked after having identified that X is a problem for the user, and remember earlier when you were talking about that pyramid or a triangle where we've identified that this is a user who's already using a hacky solution for something like this.
Yes.
I think at that point of time, perhaps this may be a relevant question.
Yes, at that point of time, it would be a relevant question, given you tell like which did X. X is very clearly defined that X does this 1, 2, 3 things or whatever, right?
Agreed.
Yeah. So at that point in time, this is a good question. Good point, Jatin. Okay. Anyone else? Okay, let's move on. The next question is, how much would you pay for X? Is this a good question?
Yes, I think it's a good question to ask.
Okay.
So this will help us understand if the user is or the customer is willing to pay, and if they say a number, then yeah, definitely they're going to pay for that, and you also can estimate how much they are going to pay.
Got it. I think, yeah, someone else.
Yeah, Ankit. So I was just trying to understand, like, what if for any other specific customer, right? X is actually a pain point, and it's not helping to. It's a feature in the product which is still a pain point. So in that, for that specific customer, if I propose this question, they wouldn't be up for it, right? So it wouldn't, rather, it wouldn't be a good question to ask.
Could you please come again? I didn't really understand that.
Yeah, so here we are saying that how much would you pay for X? So
Yeah.
X, I'm assuming here is some feature or some some kind of a problem that we are trying to solve for the customer, right? So
Correct.
this is with the assumption. So what the assumption that I have is X is actually solved. What if X is actually a pain point for other set of customers?
Right.
To them, if I actually come up with this question that, okay, how much would you pay for this specific problem? So they wouldn't be up for it, right?
Correct. So this is right. This is valid point. And like we discussed in last question, once you already know that this is a pain point for someone, or this is not a pain point for someone, it becomes very obvious that, okay, this person has a willingness to pay for this. This person does not have a willingness to pay for this. But coming back to, so this is a valid point. But coming back to the previous point that was raised, this is not really a very good way to gauge willingness to pay. Okay. The reason is, what a person might say that he's willing to pay this might not actually be the case when you actually build the product and go to them that, hey, I have the product now. Are you willing to buy it? Right. So so what you can do is you can gauge this willingness to pay in a bunch of different ways, right? For example, you can try to understand what is their budget for something like this, or how much are they incurring in solving for this problem as of today, using whatever way they are solving for this thing, right? So rather than directly asking how much would you do it, try to understand, are they actually spending on this right now? If they are not spending on this right now, is it a hole in their pocket? Is this problem a hole in this pocket, right? If it is actually a hole in their pocket, how big is the hole, right? Because that gives you an idea that, okay, this person would actually want to save this much, right? So try to use indirect ways to actually gauge willingness to pay. Yeah. You have some responses in Q&A.
Am I audible now?
Yes, Abhilash, you are audible. Go ahead, Abhilash. Looks like Abhilash is facing a problem again.
I think, yeah, he's having some issues
Am
with
I
his
audible?
mic.
Yes, you are audible. Abhilash, can you type
Am I audible?
in the chat? I'll try to answer it from there.
I think I'm audible now. I can see my name there.
You are audible. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So instead of asking how much, I think the best would be, would you like to pay, kind of, just to get a gist of whether they are willing to see that product in the next release, and they are willing to pay for the particular feature.
Instead of asking how much would you want to pay, what did you propose?
Would they like to pay for that particular feature, or they would like to see it in the next release.
Correct. But again, the problem is still the same. You are asking a direct question where the answer that you get might not really resonate with the action that a person is taking. See, we have to remember that as humans, there are many times when we do when we don't do what we say. Like if I ask you what is your favorite color, right? When you pick, let's say, a jeans for yourself, right, or a dress for yourself, you might give me an answer. But then when I start asking you, okay, let's now go ahead and check what all colors you have purchased in last 1 year, right? You may not have purchased many dresses of that color, right? So asking a very closed-ended question, asking a very direct question may not be the best way to gauge anything. Rather we want to get to know indirectly, right? How are their behaviors? We want to learn from behaviors rather than opinions. Okay, how much time do we have? We have half an hour, Harleen.
Yes, we do, Ankit.
Okay, so I'll continue for at least 15 more minutes and then we'll pause for questions. Is that all right? Or do you want to have questions now?
I think that would be fine, Ankit.
Okay, because I think we have taken some questions during the session, so I am assuming there won't be a lot of questions at the end.
Yes.
Okay, so what would your dream product do? How's this question? Or like, what would your dream feature do when you are talking to customers who are already using your product?
Bad question.
In fact, yeah, go on, Abhilash.
It's a bad question because it could have a multiple. The product could have multiple features, so they might not be able to list out all that. What as you said, the behavior may be different than what they want to manage. Close question, open, close and net.
Okay, I think there's a problem with Abhilashka network, but we get this. Rutuja also has her hand raised.
Hi, Rutuja. You should be able to unmute yourself now.
Yes. Am I audible?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So actually, I think this is a very, very good question which we can ask to the customers because this questions gives us a lot of insights that how our ideal product would do and what the features actually the customers are looking for. So I think this would be one of the excellent questions we can ask to our customers.
Got it. Thank you. Suresh also has his hand raised. Go ahead, Suresh.
Yes. So I've actually asked this question, asked similar question during my interviews in the past couple of months. So I asked like, what is your wish list, or what is the ideal product for you, and things like that. And that has actually given me quite a lot of actionable insights. So, and another thing I asked was like, if there are no constraints, if there are no limitations, is that you would like to work. So that has given me a lot more insights than any other questions, I would say.
Got it. Anyone else? Jitin again. Yeah, Jitin.
Yeah, I think it can be a good starting point, but maybe the answer to this question by itself may not be the one which is providing the insights, because the answer to this question is mostly going to be a set of features or whatever else somebody wants, right? You're not, whereas what you want to get to is the problems people have. So maybe the features that they're talking about will be prompts for you to actually get into those features. So it for sure it leads to an open-ended conversation, this question, but the answer to this question by itself may not be sufficient for you to do anything actionable.
Got it. Anyone else? Okay,
So by the way,
Yeah.
the last question I was asking during my interviews, the very last one.
Okay.
Yeah, Ankit, I would like to add to this point. So in this case, like at least for some of the customers that I had taken interview for, so I was redirected. So I was redirected to a lot of points which is not adhering to the problem statement that I was looking for. So they kept on talking about other problems which is related to their factories. Let's say for what are the other activities there. The user personas per se do it, but it was not directly related to the problem that I'm trying to solve. So it was getting to me, it sounded to be getting a lot of unnecessary data, which not addressing the right problem that I'm looking for.
Got it. Got it. All points are valid. Anyone else? I see that almost 50% of people have kind of spoken. Yeah, I see Vinay has raised his hand. Go ahead, Vinay.
Yeah, I think this is one opportunity. This question offers you one opportunity where it helps you to go outside your echo chamber, spend within your company and hear the similar things within your product teams, and get to hear from the customer from their lens, and gives you opportunity to think outside of what you have usually heard.
Got it. Got it. Valid. This is also a valid point. So basically, I would not say this is a bad question. I would not say this is a very good question also, but this is a very good starting point to start digging the rabbit hole, right? With this question, generally what will happen is the people that you speak to, most of them will start throwing solutions at you. They will start throwing features at you, right? But then if you remember your art, you will pick those feature ideas and then start digging. Why do you need this? What problem will this feature solve for you, right? Why is that even a problem, right? So you start going deeper and deeper into it to uncover the bottommost or most critical pain point that this user has. And with this, you can even discover some new ideas, like many people have said. So it is a good question to start with, but you need to remember that you need to be cognizant of how you take the answers forward once a person has responded. Suresh, again, go ahead, Suresh.
Yeah, so during my interviews, there were a couple of interviewees who did not open up, or rather giving very superficial, open-ended kind of answers. So particularly for them, when we asked like, what is your wish list or the ideal product for you, that is when they really opened up. So they started answering, okay, this is what I want. So then we asked like, why is that? And then we used the 5 why technique. And that is when we got to the root cause of, or rather the challenges they had. So none of the other questions actually worked for people who were like not opening up, and this one worked like a charm.
Correct. So because generally, see, it also depends on like what is the experience of the person that you're speaking to. If he has already spoken to product managers who have directly asked them about features, right? Product managers who work at feature factories, right? They are not used to answering those questions. So like I said, this is a good starting point. And once the user opens up, you can actually go in details. Okay,
Yeah,
let's move on.
for the first time, they were all speaking for the first time to, I mean, they were part of the user research for the first time.
Yeah. Okay. Let's move on. There are a few people who have not interacted in this session. I request them to try to answer or contribute to the upcoming questions. What is the hardest part about doing X? Anyone? Jitin. Okay. Go ahead, Jitin.
Hi, Jitin. We are unable to hear you.
Oh, I'm sorry. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Sorry. I was saying this seems like a good question to me because you're trying to get to the problem, talking about what the difficulties the person is facing in doing X.
Okay. Anyone else?
I think it's a good question.
Yeah, but I think it's a good question to ask as well, because it gives us the varied perspectives, the customers, the currently how they are using the existing products, right? So we'll end up getting different ideas and views, and that way it'll help us to narrow down that if it's actually helping me to resolve my right problem or not.
Correct. Anyone else?
Yeah, this is a good question because it will help us to get down the pain points and have it addressed.
Got it. Go ahead, Vinay.
Certainly better question than the previous one. So it goes into the specificity rather than asking an open-ended question. So we delve into probably and also identify the actual users who might have had that pain point rather than somebody who has not faced it.
Got it. Yeah. So correct. This is actually a very good question, because when you talk about the difficulties that a person faces in doing whatever like they do in their daily lives, right? It helps you get very powerful insights on your users' lives, right? On your users' workflows, in the context that the person is using your product. So this is a really good insight that you can use to kind of improve your product. So this is a good question. Tell me about the last time you faced this problem. We have already discussed this. Why is this a problem? How do you solve this problem at present? Let's come to this now. We'll take one more question after this. Yeah, Jitin.
Yeah.
Again, a good question for me. Because it's people are going to talk about the workarounds they have. It goes into that territory of hacks that people are using currently. It'll also give you a signal on the value that your solution may provide to them, may go into your pricing decisions.
Correct. Anyone else?
Yeah, I think it's a good question.
Yeah.
So it gives
Yes,
us,
definitely a good question. It's a good question.
Yeah, it's a good question. So basically, again, like similar to the way what Jitin just mentioned, that it gives you an idea like what are the different workarounds the customers are using it currently to solve the problem. And we can see that if the product that I'm trying to build is actually going to have a better way to address it or not.
Got it. Fair enough. I guess, yeah, Rutuja also. Go ahead, Rutuja.
Yes, I think this is also a very good question we can ask, because it gives the idea that what our product is actually doing in the market. So this is also a very good question.
Cool. Okay. I kind of agree with everyone's answers, and I think most of you over here have got a gist of like what I wanted to convey as a message in this masterclass. So maybe this is the last question that we take. What you don't love about the solutions that you have already tried?
Yeah, great question to ask. I have asked this in the past interviews.
Yeah. Go ahead, Jitin.
Yeah, agreed. I also like this question. It gives you something to differentiate yourself from competition as well.
So this question basically tells you like the missing parts. This really opens up the gaps for you, right?
Right.
You know, these are the pain points. Okay, we don't have much time, so I'll move on. This is again another question. Is there anything else I should have asked? This is a good question. Now I'll answer on your behalf because we are short on time. I want to take a few questions also. This is a good question to ask because at times when we are talking to someone, the person wants to share something that might be relevant for us, right? So if we end with this question, we might learn something, we might get some insights, we might not get also, but this gives a very big open canvas for the user to say whatever they want to say. Then the last question, who else should I talk to? This is also a very good question because it keeps your pipeline, growing. You get more and more users with this question, and you actually end up talking to a lot of people without putting in much effort to recruit the people, right? So these were some questions that I wanted to do. Thank you for participating. I really liked the kind of participation we saw here. These are some useful resources I have been talking about. So 4 types of resources. One is books. These books help you understand the entire discovery process. These books help you understand how to actually go about building a product from idea to a scalable product, right? So a bunch of books. The Startup Owner's Manual is one of the old books, and it is really good. The MOM test, someone had spoken about this in the chat. This is one of the good books. Some of the questions that I've taken is from this book. Talking to Humans is also a good books. Continuous Discovery Habits is a newer book. It came I guess last year, and it talks about a lot of good product discovery practices that companies use as of today. Testing Business Ideas is more about experiments than interviews, but it also throws a light on interviews. And Inspired is a general book on product management that helps you get started if you are getting started with product management. So these are some books that you can read. Out of these books, the MOM test and Talking to Humans are really short books. These are like 120 page books, so you can actually read them in one weekend. Then there are certain blogs. I will share this slide so that you can actually access these resources. One is a product discovery playbook, which I have published on my own website. I have talked about the entire process from idea to scaling, and experimentation bit is also covered in that. Then there is Sean Murphy's blog and Customer Development Labs. So these are also 2 good books. Then there are certain products, like I told earlier, which help you get customer interviews if you are struggling to get. And finally, these are 2 interesting websites. So I can actually open them up and show it to you. These websites, what they do is they are like graveyard for startups. So they have real life case studies. Is my screen visible? My browser screen?
Yes.
Yes, it's visible.
So if you go and see here, this is a graveyard, and they have one section which is called Startup Symmetry. So you go here and you see a list of startups that have failed, right? There are 200 to 50 plus startups, and then they talk about why this startup failed, what were the reasons, right? So there is a lot that you can learn. You can filter it from like use case wise and all of it, but really good resource for you to learn about different failure reasons. Similarly, there is another one of such websites, which is called startupgraveyard.io. In this, they have 2 sections specifically dedicated to products that Google released and failed, and products that Amazon released and failed. So this is again really good thing for you to learn. These are list of all the products that have died, even from a company like Google. So lots to learn here. Yeah. So that is it that I had to share. If you still have any unanswered questions, we can take them now.
Yeah, Ankit, I had asked you a question in the beginning. So we will be having very limited users to discuss with in a B2B setup. So how maximize the actionable insights we can derive through this limited interactions we can have with the users?
Okay. So why do you say, Suresh, that we have limited users in B2B setup? Can you paint the picture a little better for me? Like,
all right,
give some example. What industry you are talking about?
So I'm from aerospace industry. So
Aerospace.
yes. So I've been currently discussing with airlines, specifically with pilot managers. So we are developing a product for airlines, specifically for pilot managers, the safety managers, and also fuel efficiency managers. So this product will help them take data-driven decisions. So and make meaningful trade-offs. For that, we need to discuss with instructors to pilots and also managers across these departments, and getting hold of them and interviewing them is really challenging. So I remember during my previous interview when we were talking to one of the senior vice president and we asked for time with these people. They said they're paid to fly the aircraft, so we cannot, give you a lot of time. So they just organized for some 5 interviews. So I'm really worried, like if this is sufficient for us to go ahead and build the product.
Got it. So this is a problem that happens in cases like this when you have something that is targeting very niche segment, such that the number of people you can potentially speak to is itself very limited. So
Right.
Honestly, I have not worked on such problems, but I have read about it. Okay. There's something called a customer advisory board. Okay. What I mean by that is, you are working in such a segment. So somehow you need to figure out ways to make certain customers co-creators with you, right? Certain people who have access to these people that you want to talk to, or certain people who have access to this industry, very good insights, right? You want to incentivize them in some way or the other, by either by revenue sharing or something, to spend a lot of time with you to help you get access to these people that you want to talk to, right?
Yeah.
So
This is
that
exactly
is one approach.
Yeah, this is exactly we have done. So we have a partnership with a specific airline, and we have told them that the product they will be getting it for free of cost, and further sales of the product they will be getting a revenue share. So yeah, despite that, we have this challenge.
Yeah, so this is the like I said, this is one potential solution in such cases that I have heard my friends doing, and which is also advocated in some of the resources that I have come across. You set up a customer advisory board, incentivize them, and leverage them to the maximum.
Yeah, this customer advisory board, yeah, maybe that is also we are trying to recruit some retired pilots, so who can help us. So that is something we are exploring at the moment.
Got it. Fair enough. Jitin,
Thank you, Ankit.
thank you. Jitin, you have a question?
Sorry. Earlier on in your presentation, you had a slide where somebody was asking a question about the fact that, okay, we have slaved to create this product. So how do you like it? Or, why did you not use it? Or something like
Yes.
that.
I'll come to that. Wait a minute. Yes.
Yes. No. Okay, maybe that, or slightly related to this. In that, so let's say maybe you didn't follow all the advice in this properly enough, or maybe like somebody else was also suggesting, the signals that you got at the beginning were different from what the market reality was, and your product didn't get enough traction.
Correct.
Right. At this point of time, now you have at least additional contacts of people who signed up to use your product. Let's say there was people who signed up but who didn't like activate or actively engage with your product, right? So do you have any advice on how to sort of interview those people to maybe help you even pivot into creating something that is solving the real problem for them?
Okay, so you are saying you spoke to people, you got some signal, you built, and now you are seeing not much traction.
Yep.
So yes, this is a common problem that this happens, and why this happens is basically either you read the signals wrong, or you skip the steps. What I mean when I say you skip the steps is, I got some signal, I got carried away, and I built the product, right? So I didn't validate the solution enough, or I didn't validate other parts, which is like willingness to pay, or which is like seriousness of the problem. Nevertheless, we have done this, and we have now reached this problem, right? What we have to do now is go little back and talk to these users again. Like, your product is solving this problem. You ask them, like, when was the last time you faced a problem? They say something, right? What you want to know is, what has changed? What has changed from the time you spoke to them last time to the time you are speaking to them now? Is there something that has changed? Or is it like they said something at that point in time and they are saying something right now, which means probably the way we read the information was not right. The way we interpreted the responses was not right. So
no, let me qualify that a little bit. So let's say you talk to 15, 20 people in the beginning, right? And maybe you had like 10 people, like let's say 50% of people had that problem that you thought was worth solving. And you went ahead and created a product, like an MVP rather, not like a full-blown product. Put it out there, and it isn't really like scaling. Like now you're not talking to 20 people. Now you're looking at like 1,000 people, right? But you're not getting, let's say, more than 50 downloads. Obviously, those 20 people or those 10 people, are using it. But beyond that, it's not, let's say, gaining traction.
Got it. So let's say those 20 people are using it, right? But then are those 20 people spreading the word about the product? Like, how did you get the other 30 people? Generally, when I launch a product, these other 30 people should come from word of mouth or referrals from these 20 people, right? My initial set of customers grow like that, right? If the other 30 people have randomly discovered you, rather than these 20 people like spreading the word of mouth, probably there is something wrong in picking up these 20 people, right? Because if you have solved a problem for these people and they are not excited to tell like two people in their life that, hey, you also had this problem. No, I got a company that solved this problem, right? Either that problem is not really significant in their life, or they are not really being very honest with you, or maybe you picked up a problem where size of the problem is limited to these 50, 60 people.
I think for me, maybe the engine of growth I chose was with ads. And maybe that invited people for, the people who got invited perhaps weren't the right people. And these people, I mean, it's so I did something in the sports sector, in the weightlifting sector, which isn't a very big, market in any case. And that's not something that will grow by virality in any case. So yeah.
All right. Actually, I want to do one survey kind of poll also, but we'll take one more question. Indumati has her hand raised, and we'll try to wrap it up on time. Indumati, you want to ask a question?
Yeah, Ankit. I work for a data management company. To interview customers there, right? It is quite difficult, is what I feel. Maybe during some meetups or product carnivals, we can get into some survey sort of things. Not actually speak to customers for 20 to 30 minutes. So is it okay to share the survey in such groups, or what do you suggest?
Yes, it is. So there are two parts. One, you need to understand why are these people not willing to spend time with you, right? Is it about the incentive? Is it about, I don't know what. So you need to figure out and incentivize them. The incentive can be in the form of real hard cash, or the incentive generally is in the form of free access to the product that you are building, early access to the product that you are building, and all of those things. Coming to surveys, yes, it is a good idea to do surveys. Surveys is one of the techniques that we use, right, when we want to gather evidence. But surveys is a different technique altogether. So we need to understand like how to design the survey well, how should the wordings of the questions be, right, so that we can draw some hard evidence from that. So surveys is actually one of the ways to gather information, but we have to do it. We have to plan it well.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Harleen, can you run the poll? So basically, this is a quick poll for me to get some feedback on how we do in the session and what are some of the things I can improve.
The poll is live, guys.
There are a few people who have not responded. Let's wait for 30 more seconds. Okay, that is it. Thank you guys. Thanks for attending. You can connect with me on different platforms. So I'm there on LinkedIn. I'm there on Twitter. I'm also there on ADP List, which is a pro bono mentoring platform. So you can find me there, and you can reach out to me if you want to discuss anything further. That's all I have.